So the title for my presentation today is Overcoming Resistance to BIM, Aligning a Change Management Method with a BIM Implementation Strategy. And just to give you a little bit of background, I'd like to introduce you to both my supervisor and myself for this research that was carried out. So my name is McLoughlin. I'm a BIM coordinator and architectural technologist with Kavanagh Tuite Architects in Dublin. This year I completed the Masters in Applied Building Information Modelling and Management with the School of Multidisciplinary Technologies in TU Dublin. And in 2015 I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Architectural Technology. Emma Hayes was the supervisor and co-author of this paper. Emma is the Managing Director of Digital Build Consultants. Emma has a Masters in BIM Management from Middlesex University in London, and also a Bachelor of Science in Architectural Technology from the Dublin Institute of Technology. So just briefly, the topics that will be covered during this presentation, I'm going to go through the motivation for my research, the statement of the problem, my research question, a little bit about the project itself, the findings and the conclusion. So the motivation for research. In December 2017, the National BIM Council announced the Roadmap to Digital Transition for Ireland's construction industry 2018 to 2021, which has come up a good few times today. And the purpose of this document was to increase adoption of BIM in Ireland. So Section 2 of this publication covers from roadmap to implementation and states that the transition to any successful change must contain vision, skills, incentives, resources, and an action plan. And I suppose this image on the right-hand side is what really got me thinking about my research. And it got me thinking about not just how large an industry change this is on SME, but more so the effect it has on SMEs. And then within SMEs in Ireland, the actual individuals who are working through this process on a day-to-day basis. So a quote that kind of sparked all the research says, "Without vision, you will have confusion. Without skills, you will foster anxiety. Without incentives, you'll meet resistance. Without resources, you'll breed frustration. And without a plan, you'll go on to make false starts." So with the statement of the problem, over the coming slides, I'll be discussing the statement of the problem with regard to SMEs in Ireland. SMEs are described by Enterprise Ireland as companies employing less than 50 staff and an annual turnover not exceeding €10 million. And this morning, Minister Sean Kenny said we can't leave anyone behind. And I think it's clear to see the benefits of BIM with its uptake within our Tier 1 and Tier 2 companies in Ireland. But it's important not to forget about the smaller companies, which make up such a large percentage of our economy here in Ireland. An astounding 86% of architectural firms in Ireland employ 5 or less staff. It's essential to assist these firms during such a widespread industry change and the transition to digital, and the welcomed introduction of BIM. Through literature review of published material, I've identified some of the industry barriers to BIM, including cost, client demand, lack of training, lack of in-house expertise, implementation within smaller companies, and a lack of standardisation in protocols. Another significant obstacle affecting BIM adoption in Ireland may be the demographic of our industry and our enthusiasm to adopt new technology. It was identified by the Irish Prospects to 2016 that the ageing of the Irish workforce and the availability of new graduates are key barriers to be overcome. Technology brings many opportunities to the workforce development, including non-construction activities. It is clear that more needs to be done to reverse the stereotypes associated with the construction industry, such as the perception which is comprised of hard hats and high vis. So a number of changes that BIM can bring to your company have been categorised into 4 different categories. BIM management, looking at defining the level of BIM implementation within our organisations, the mentoring of BIM, new roles that come to our companies such as the BIM coordinator and BIM manager, and adoption of industry standards. Under BIM measurements, we're looking at the level of knowledge within an organisation, the organisation's attitudes towards BIM, and the key performance indicators from a business perspective. BIM skills looks at the competencies and framework agreements that we have for our BIM coordinators and managers. And within the final category of BIM education, we're looking at BIM training courses. And this morning, one of the managing directors of RPS, Jerry Carty, said digital is disruptive and change is ahead for SMEs. Adopting BIM without a plan is like taking a trip unaware of the baggage that can slow you down. And with regard to baggage in this scenario, I'm talking about workflows, learning curves, interoperability, insurances, identity and role, mindset, and communication. So organisational change is described as a process which is undertaken by a company in order to change its working methods and aims. There is evidence in research between BIM and organisational change, as it is suggested in research that BIM is the driver for change. And in order for a company to successfully implement change, a company must first make use of the potential benefits of BIM and understand that BIM implementation is dependent on changes within our organisations. So moving on to looking at individual resistance. Individual resistance resides in the basic human characteristics such as people's personalities, needs and perceptions. There are a number of barriers to implementing change, and individual resistance is one of them. Change provokes resistance as people can be afraid of the unknown, not have an understanding for the need to change, or share the same vision for change. Employees may see change as a threat to their company position and therefore resist it. This is primarily due to the lack of communication between managers and employees, causing rumours and speculation. Change occurs at the individual level within a company, and the ProSky ADCAR change management model identifies the 5 key milestones an individual must go through in order to achieve change. So ADCAR represents awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. I've included this slide because I think it sums up how important communication is, and it says, what if, and I know this sounds kooky, we communicated with employees. Organisational change needs to be visible and transparent from everyone so employees can see decisions being made at management levels, and also that managers can see the effects that it has on a day-to-day basis to the delivery of tasks from their employees. So looking at my research question, how can small to medium-sized companies within the architectural, engineering and construction industry in Ireland overcome or respond to the organisational and individual resistance to the implementation of the BIM process in practice? So just a little bit about the project itself. A pre-interview questionnaire was completed by each participant that took part in the research to give insight into the research area and to allow for openness and transparency during the face-to-face interviewing process. Topics which were covered within the pre-interview questionnaire included the background and professional experience of the individuals, their understanding of BIM and BIM maturity levels, and their understanding of their company's vision for BIM and what they felt were the most significant barriers to BIM. 7 individual qualitative interviews were used for the purpose of stakeholder analysis to collect data from individuals currently working through the BIM process on a day-to-day basis. Participants were chosen from 3 categories within each of the companies, from general management, BIM management, and BIM users. Moving on to the findings from the research. The interviews and the results were categorised into the previously discussed 5 areas, 5 milestones an individual must achieve. This is going to come up a few times now till the end of the presentation, but looking again at awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. So defining the company's vision for BIM was something that almost all stakeholders found difficult. Many of the interviewees from both the managerial and employee levels felt that a clearer vision was something that would benefit the companies and the individuals in understanding of what the company is working towards. Interviewees were also asked why there would be a need within the companies that they are working for to implement BIM, of which 57% responded that it was due to their company's client demand. So back to looking at the cycle of the 5 milestones. Building on desire within the companies, employees were asked about the involvement of their managers during the BIM implementation. Respondents felt that managers could provide more clarity with a visible BIM implementation plan, standards and protocols, as well as management having a better understanding of what goes on in a day-to-day within the BIM process. The structure around knowledge was based on gaining an understanding of the in-house standards and protocols within the companies, as well as how companies were managing the spread of knowledge within their businesses. Interviewees from the employee level all agreed that some form of structure is required in order to know what they should be achieving as individuals. The ability section of the interview was an analysis of how companies actioned the previously discussed area of knowledge. So with management, I discussed topics such as BIM implementation plans, change management strategies, provision of time and tools to learn new softwares, and any changes to the output of their work since the introduction of BIM. 66% of the managerial level responded that there was no BIM implementation plan within their offices. All managers saw that there was benefit in having one and that it should be visible to all staff. So I've lost a slide. There was just 2 graphics, but I'll talk you through them. Within the pre-interview questionnaire, I had listed out industry barriers to BIM, and I had asked the respondents to categorise them in what they felt was the most important barriers within the industry. So what came back was that difference in expertise was what they felt was the number one barrier the industry was facing at 13%, closely followed by no contractual framework at 10% and a cost of implementation at 10%. So then when I went on to the face-to-face interviewing process, I then asked each individual to highlight any personal barriers that they had experienced with BIM. And the most significant barrier that each individual had faced was people's perception of BIM at 28%. So that was what each person thought BIM was, or what they were expecting to get back from BIM. So within reinforcement, it was essential to look at the way people were working on a day-to-day basis. During the interviews, I asked the interviewees, was it often easier to revert back to traditional work methods before the introduction of BIM, when external pressures such as time were applied to their projects? 57% responded yes. It is essential as management of these companies to identify the gaps and plan for the next tasks that are coming and the new projects within our offices. So on to the conclusion of my research. On the left-hand side is an image that represents 14 key issues identified within 12 BIM implementation plans within the industry. These issues were identified through a comparison study of 3 categories: software, academic, and industry professionals. Under pre-implementation, we're looking at defining BIM goals, planning BIM uses, leadership, managerial support, level of BIM implementation, identifying current skill sets, and listing the required skill sets within our businesses. During the BIM implementation phase, we're looking at continuous training and development for our employees, collaboration, information exchange execution, appropriate hardwares and softwares, and conformity to standardisation. Post-BIM implementation, we're looking at educational BIM awareness, spreading BIM implementation across teams, and performance reviews. On the right-hand side again, I've included the 5 key milestones an individual must achieve in order to successfully change. And finally, the result of my research: a BIM adoption roadmap that aligns change management strategies with a BIM implementation plan. So here I've taken the 14 issues previously discussed and categorised them into the 5 categories that an individual must achieve. So when we talk about awareness, we're talking about defining our business's goals for BIM, what we want to achieve, planning our uses for BIM within our businesses, and what level of BIM implementation we're hoping to achieve. Under desire, we're looking at leadership and managerial support, encouraging our employees to help us achieve our goals. Under knowledge, we're looking at identifying the current skill sets and the list of required skills. We're continuously providing education and training to our employees so that they have the knowledge to perform their daily tasks through the BIM process. Under ability, we're looking at collaboration between our employees and across offices, information exchange execution, having the appropriate hardwares and softwares to carry out our tasks, and conformity to standardisation within our practices. Within reinforcement, we're looking at educational BIM awareness and spreading BIM across our teams, and within that, personal key performance reviews for our employees. The consensus from the interviewing process resulted that BIM is a significant change to the daily operation of SME practices in Ireland, and that it is a change that must be carefully managed in order to avoid resistance. Participants of this research felt that a BIM adoption roadmap like this could only benefit the transition period by providing measurable milestones and allow for reflection on change. Future work to trial the proposed roadmap will be necessary to show the benefits of delivering BIM with a change management strategy. And thank you.